Okay. Yeah. Today we are going to discuss a little bit about dressing selection. Going to show you how to think about it, and we'll be going to some previous slides as well. And yeah, you can hear me properly, no? Is it? Yes. Sound is okay, no? So what we are going to do today is we are going to go through a little bit about the types of dressings and all. We spoke a few days back, and then we are trying. I will show you some cases, and we'll discuss those. And for the first few slides, mute the mic. And if there's a problem, of course, on the mic, can ask, no issue. Then afterwards, we'll discuss. Okay. Then okay, we'll start. Huh? So, first thing is to know what an ideal dressing is. In a previous occasion, I think we have discussed this a little bit. So, in a nutshell, what an ideal wound dressing would do is to provide mechanical and bacterial protection and maintain a moist environment in the wound dressing. As I have told you in previous lectures, moisture is the main thing in wound care. So if you have moisture, wounds will heal. If you add, if it's less, add. If it's more, take it out. So that's basically you need moisture is the key to wound healing. So mechanical and bacterial protection, of course, you can understand that's the purpose of the tegumentum, or the skin is or tegumentum. So it's the purpose of that is lost when there's a breach in the skin. So that you have to provide. So the third thing what an ideal dressing will do is allow gaseous and fluid exchange from the wound surface. If you cover it up, seal it up, then there will be anaerobes. So if you so that balance has to be there. The fluid, if it's it has to absorb and let it vaporize, that sort of thing. So and the fourth thing is it should be non-adherent, 100% non-adherent to the wound, because when you remove it otherwise, you will be removing all the epithelial the new epithelial layer as well, and you will be damaging the new granulation. You will just making it a new wound each time you do the dressing. So the fifth thing is it should be non-toxic. It should be non-allergenic, non-sensitizing. And the other thing is it should be well acceptable to the patient, and it should like it should provide pain relief. It should be restricting the movements, or it should not be a bunch of worms in a can, like this new maggot dressings. So in some cultures that is acceptable, but in our culture it's not acceptable. So it depends on patient's beliefs and all those things. So the main thing is should be cost effective. An ideal dressing must be cost effective. Cost is another main thing when you are doing wound care in a third world country. So the other thing that we have to know before going into discussing how to discussing about how to choose dressings, you have to know what a dressing is. What are the components of a dressing? There is a primary dressing which goes on top of the wound bed, which touches the wound bed. There are you can that should be really non-adherent, and of course we can incorporate if you want antiseptics, antibiotics, so some moisture giving qualities, so whatever the quality you can put into the primary dressing. Secondary dressing is basically about moisture retention and moisture giving and that sort of thing. And tertiary dressing, of course, and the secondary dressing is again it's about protection as well. And sometimes we apply a tertiary dressing, which actually the purpose of that may be to give compression, maybe to give additional support, that sort of thing. So then we straight away go into how to decide. So now you know what an ideal dressing is, what are the parts of a dressing is, and how to decide. So to know how to decide, you have to ask this question: what do wounds need to heal? Basically, what wounds need to heal is, I'm not going to talk about the patient-based, patient-targeted sort of issues. Here, today we are going to discuss only the wound bed and the wound. So, what the wound needs to heal is freedom from infection and dead tissue, and good blood supply, immunity, sugar control, and nutrition. Those are basically the main things. So, the most important thing is, as I said earlier, is moisture. So, freedom from infection and dead tissue, good blood supply, immunity, sugar control, and nutrition, and moisture. So we have to balance these. We have to give these or take away excess. So then, how to decide? How do we decide? Is the main thing in wound care in a country like ours, especially. And I think it's a general thing for even for the most wealthier country. The most expensive dressing is not the most appropriate dressing. That's the general principle. Moment, can you mute the mic? So the most expensive dressing is not the most appropriate dressing. So another principle is, if they are more moist, you have to use a moisture removing dressing. They are less moist in the wound, add moisture and retain. So if there's infection, of course, what you do is there are various other things that you can do to control infection before going into antiseptic dressings. So the antiseptic dressings are at the end of the line, where you can do a wound toilet, you can do an IND and remove pus, you can use the appropriate antibiotic if there is overt infection and sepsis, and then use an antiseptic dressing. If there are dead tissue, of course, debride. So debridement, you can do a sharp debridement, or you can do chemical debridement with a dressing. So there also you can use a dressing. So our dressings only to cover and give moisture. Another thing, now we discussed about now covering and infection control and give moisture and all various things that that the dressings will do. So are the dressings only for that? So somebody, okay, I muted him. So are the dressings only for these things? Is there anything else that we can do with dressing? So infection control, of course, I told you earlier, and chemical debridement also I told you, and compression, third layer you can use for compression, and of course immobilization you can do with the third layer, and the third layer you can use for offloading also. So many things can be done with the dressing. It's not only covering and using moisture and just infection control, that sort of thing. So you have to, when you are applying the dressing, you have to think about all these. It should be it should be the ideal dressing for the out of available options. It should be the ideal dressing for that particular wound, and it should be acceptable to the patient, and it should do its justice to the moisture and whatever the other problems that the wound is having, and you can use it to give some immobilization, no flooding, that sort of thing as well. So that is how you decide on a proper dressing. So this is a chart of types of wound dressings that are available at the moment. So just remember these are types, not brands, just types. So just there are alginates. You when you get when somebody comes and promotes you a dressing, you see what sort of dressing it is. This type, so now there are other types as well. So you look into this, what type of dressing it is. Say it's an alginate. So somebody brought you a packet of dressing and say, sir, madam, can you use this? And this is like this. This is a magic dressing. It will heal so many wounds, and it's like 3,000 rupees. So, well, you so yeah, again, so you just categorize yourself. You just think about these things. Say whether it's an alginate. So what does it do? It can absorb fluid, and if say it does promote total debridement and all that, because it absorbs fluid and it forms a gel on top of the wound. It forms a gel, so it gives off a little, gives off enough moisture, and sometimes a little bit too much moisture. So that you have to remember with alginate. So so this what they say is, do not use on dry necrotic wounds, use with portion in friable tissue, do not pack cavity wounds tightly, that sort of thing. So that is all those are practical things. Anyway, then the other thing is the foam dressings. Foam dressings, they absorb fluid, they do a little bit of moisture control, they take it and give it back, and it conforms to the wound bed. That means you can bend it and keep it, and they put a little bit of plaster, and that can be a good primary as well as the secondary dressing, also usually incorporated in the foam dressing. But they are you must pack it with good amount of gauze as a secondary layer. So then just forget about these, what the precautions and contraindications. So these things are very practical. So sometimes these can be used on necrotic wounds. Some of the dressings. So these the category of wound dressings, the category of foam dressings generally like this, but you can sometimes use. So just forget about these things. Just remember the types. So medical honey, usually it's Manuka honey. So that also a little bit difficult to use in Sri Lanka, because we are a temperate, we are a hot country. So the Manuka honey dressings that will stay firm, the honey is like liquid in Sri Lanka. So you have to sort of it's very difficult to use in Sri Lanka, but it actually works on some pseudomonas and all. But the problem is that it's expensive and it tries to ooze out and a little bit of more moisture. And the other thing is obvious problem in Sri Lanka is ants. So another type of dressings are the hydrocolloids. They also absorb fluid, promote autolytic dependence because they retain and give a lot of moisture. So hydrocolloids uh, uh, are they they are also very conformable to the wound beds, and if you need autolytic debridement, actually hydrocolloids are a good option, but gives a lot of moisture. And you usually see the surrounding tissue maceration in hydrocolloids. And hydrogels, there are various types of hydrogels from Metrogel to Intrasite. I mean, from 150 rupees to 3,000, 5,000 rupees, there are hydrogels. So what they do is they rehydrate the wound bed and they give moisture. And they also promote autolytic debridement. But any dressing that gives a lot of moisture will promote autolytic debridement. So the other type is iodine. Iodine in the sense the iodine fluid, which you usually call betadine. Somebody has asked a question. I will answer this at the end. So, iodine is antimicrobial action of the liquid iodine is just it is there for a moment. When it touches raw tissue, they will just it will oxidize everything and just become water. So it's like putting water into the wound. It's like putting iodine. So what you and liquid iodine is a skin preparatory agent. It's not a wound dressing. And this oxidizing and corrosive power of iodine is harmful to diabetic wounds and all. So for a tiny scratch and all everything, if you put betadine, what happens is you will see that raw area will have no color, and the rest of the area will have brown. So what happens is the iodine gets oxidized, and everything else is also burned and all. So it will make the area clean for a moment, and then it will be water. So moisture heals the wound. So iodine, of course, if you are putting iodine, it has to be either twice daily or daily. You have to put it frequently. If you want some autolytic debridement and stuff happening with betadine, it's iodine usually, which we call betadine. So that betadine is the first the company name, which the first liquid iodine that was brought to the island, I guess. So there's another type of iodine, that is cadexam iodine, which releases very slowly. And that this cadexam type, it becomes a gel at the end. So that also absorbs water, and it will become a little bit of a good moisture retaining dressing. So that can be used to promote autolytic debridement. And this iodine, it's corrosive. So if you are suspecting biofilm, you can use it. So not the liquid type. Cadexam iodine penetrates to some nanometers into the biofilm, but thick biofilm, that won't do anything. So another type is there are silicone dressings which we don't actually use a lot. those are non-adherent, low adherent ones. So there are dressings which have silicone has a silicone primary layer and attached to it some foam and all that, and that those are combined dressings. So then there's activated charcoal, protease modulators, and all that, and that's those are sort of high-end stuff and not really used a lot. And there is silver. So silver still we haven't seen resistance to silver. What silver does is silver dressing. What they do is they release about 8 ppm nano silver into the wound bed. So the microbes, they take the silver in, and they usually ferment iron. So when the silver also goes into the same mechanism, and they get silver poisoning and die. So mitochondrial poisoning, and I can remember. So it's silver acts at the mitochondrial cellular level, and it gives a good antimicrobial action. The more silver the dressing will give, the more higher the antimicrobial action will be. So remember this: the silver dressing, a good silver dressing, can actually it can protect the important structures. In a septic wound, if you have done a proper debridement and you have cleaned everything else, and there will be bacteria who are happy to grow. But if you put a silver dressing onto say tendons and all, you can protect those for a certain amount. So there are polyurethane films also, and you may have seen post-op patients coming with these polyurethane films. So there are various indications for those as well. So then there is a wound management dressing guide, but I would rather not. I mean, this is good to just to have a sort of an idea. This can be downloaded. I think it's in the internet. So when we are discussing the cases, I think we can go through this later. So you basically what this says is say we'll take the types of wounds. Say going to the next page. Granulating. Say we start with a granulating cream red with a dry to low exudate. So what we need to do is remote granulation, provide healthy wound bed epithelialization. So what we need is a little bit of gel and some something to retain that gel and something non-adherent. So very simple as that. So this is going to end in 10 minutes. So in 10 minutes, you all will have to join again. So we'll go into say granulating high exudate. We have to take the stuff out. Then you get these alginates and say silicone combined dressing, foam dressings, and all that. You can remove it. So otherwise, you have to remove the secondary dressing, which is absorbent. Say secondary dressing is a layer of gauze. You can remove it frequently, not touching the primary dressing. So just remove the excess exudate. So say epithelializing, no to low exudate. So just protect the new tissue growth. And you need a little bit of moisture. And since it's not giving a lot of moisture, so whatever comes out should be retained and given back. So that's where the hydrocolloids come in. I told you the hydrocolloids give a lot of moisture. If you give a lot of moisture to hydrocolloid, it will give it back. So in this kind of situation, yes, hydrocolloid will be ideal. And you can even put a polyurethane film and forget it. So then infected wounds, then you need antimicrobial dressing. But those are not superior to proper management of infection with other measures. So you have necrotic tissue, what do? You have to hydrate and promote autolytic debridement. So I agree with hydrogel. Honey, of course, in Sri Lankan setting, it's very difficult to manage. So you can actually put 8-hourly saline dressings also. So slough, dry to low express slough. So we need to remove slough, provide a clean wound, granulation, and rehydrate the wound, control moisture, autolytic debridement. So again, hydrogel and this stuff, but none of those are superior to even in necrotic circumstances or the sloppy circumstances. These hydrogels and honey and say whatever gives a lot of moisture like hydrocolloid, they are not superior to your surgical management, your sharp management. Then the moderate to high excess sloppy. What do? You do absorbent dressing. And that will of course promote autolytic debridement as well. This one you can see the foot. Now you can on your mics if you are not in a noisy environment. So there are few questions I will answer at the end in the next session. So you see this foot. He's a 78-year-old consultant doctor, the controlled diabetic, and being a doctor is a little bit stubborn, and he doesn't like big dressings. So how do you manage this? What would be an ideal dressing? This doesn't give off a lot of this is epithelializing, this is healing. This was cavity healing actually.
Oh.
What do you all think? What will be the ideal dressing for this?
Oh.
Any idea? Anybody? There are about 100 people in this. Exactly 100. Yeah, Samir Akbar says Metrogel and offload. Yeah, that's a good option and very cheap. You can use Metrogel and non-adherent, little bit of a say Vaseline Gauze or something that non-adherent to the wound bed, and definitely you have to offload. But how are you going to offload? That is the problem now. He doesn't like big dressings, so you can't do a third layer offloading in this. How are you going to offload? And he wants to be ambulatory. He wants to go to his to go around. You have to go and do his routine exercises, which are not really much. And he likes driving. So how are you going to offload this? It's the footwear. Yeah. No, immobilizing is not an option because I mean he likes to be mobilized. We have to the patient comes first. He has to decide. It has to be acceptable. I told you. So we have to modify the shoe. So that's what was done here, and he was very happy. And he went to his estate and he did his exercises, and he was, I mean, is this was a huge cavity after the somebody removed this callus, and now this is about this is the third dressing. I think this was taken. So he was very happy, and this is also epithelialized. Within about 2 dressings, that is weekly dressing, he healed. So offloading with footwear. So now this one. This was a 46-year-old teacher. This is the thing. This is, I think, the third time he came to me. I took this picture. This was the whole thing was a big plate of slough, greenish plate of slough, because somebody had done about 3 wound toilets, and that was the outcome. And it was not healing for about 2 months. This was a chemo accident. So the chemotherapy was given to their, they couldn't find a proper vein to give, and they have done the most drastic thing. They have given to the foot, so it went out. So this is the outcome. So so you see the diabetic as well. How do you manage this one? Now there is still greenish slough and a lot of discharge, lot of oozing, and a diabetic. So what kind of dressing? This session is going to end in about 1 minute. You will have to join again in another one. No? Use the same link. So what do you think about this? How do you manage this one? What does the greenish discharge tell you? Yeah, it's pseudomonas. So yes, so you don't have to do a culture and all that. So it's pseudomonas. So what are we going to use? Now you need debridement as well as you need to control the infestation, as well as you need some debridement. So what? So this was a this poor diabetic has had a hipper cut, and this is the third time he came to me, and now what's the problem in him now? Can you see the problem? It's again the tendon. See the extensors to these two toes are exposed, and the rest of the wound is really epithelializing good granulation tissue. It's going to heal. This part is going to the lower part is going to give problem. So what should we do? I mean, we can use a silver dressing on this part, and a little bit of Metrogel and Vaseline goes on the other part. So a composite dressing. So that will be way cheaper. And in a later date, as I told you, all the rest healed, and this is left. So what should we do now? you should jump into it and cut it off and heal it immediately, or just wait? What should you do? What do you all think? What would you all do? I mean, it's not healing now. Everything else has healed, and everybody's bothered that why is it healing? Why, doctor, is it not healing? Is it not healing? What's the thing? Sarindu says, clean it again. Use the same dressing without silver dressing. That's what you are saying, without silver dressing, is it? Sami Akbar says, continue with silver. Kanishketiarachi says, silver dressing. Yeah, what I wanted to tell you here was, don't be in a hurry. Now you see this, you have to read the telltale signs. Now there is granulation tissue coming over this tendon. So what the point here is, whether to use silver dressings or not, it's not. The point here is, you wait, you take time. Don't be in a hurry to decide and cut and chop and all that those things in this kind of a wound. It's healing. Let it heal. As I have told you in earlier sessions, the body's natural tendency is to heal. As I said from my first lecture, it's very difficult to get a chronic wound because the body's tendency is to heal. If you support the body properly, it will eventually heal. So take time, and it will heal. Dulani Karunan says Metrogyl is enough. No, there is still exposed tendon. Now, if this gets septic, if there's a septic focus here, and it will go through the whole tendon and give rise to a full-blown cellulitis, so sepsis. So you might have to cut open the whole thing along the tendon. So it's best to put a little bit of silver and wait. So what I wanted to highlight here was take time for the until the last moment. It's healing. Read the telltale signs and let it heal. So I think this is the last one. Yeah. So this one, you can see it's a fluffy bed. So again, this was when the person first came to me, this was much worse. I have actually removed a lot of slough here. Now this is the second dressing. So what are the issues here? Just forget about this is the second dressing. So this is the first time you are saying, this is what you get: an 80-year-old female, huge CVA, bedbound for about 4-6 months, and this is the condition she comes in. What are the issues? Here the main issue is that the person is bedbound. These are pressure sore. Yeah, high risk of contamination. Kanishka says high risk of contamination. Yes, that is also there. But the main issue is this is a pressure sore. So you have to make sure it's offloaded. Otherwise, never going to heal. And there is slough. That's another issue. And the contamination. That's another issue. And the fact that she has a huge CVA, she might not be able to. Now, I haven't given the whole history. She can't swallow. So she can hardly swallow. So she's on a sort of a liquid meal. She wants to swallow. She likes food, but she can't eat. So nutritional problems are definitely there. And now we only have another 10 minutes. So anyway, another problem, she may be anemic, she may be hyperproteinemia, all those problems are there. And the fact that she's an 8-year-old, we have discussed this in an earlier lecture, age itself causes poor healing. So because the body's healing process, everything is old now. So age and the condition of the skin, and maybe she's having micronutrient deficiencies and all that. And anything else? We have to put her on a mattress. First thing is you have to ask them to get a air mattress and put her on a mattress. So otherwise, turn. When you are turning, you have to advise on these the pressure points, other pressure points. So we will discuss bed sore prevention, management of bed sores and bed sore prevention next week. So that's why I put this as the last one. So here the thing is, another thing is, this has to be, Sami Akbar says may need catheter. Do you want to push a catheter into this person? Isn't it causing this person's life miserable? I mean, it's a focus of infection and all that, and you want to put anything into your whatever. So it's relative. It's if you really, she has a real incontinence, you can't really manage it, and it's always you need a dressing change, you do it. Otherwise, if it's healing and these are now what I wanted to tell you is that this kind of wound, the dressing should be very simple and practical. And you can't, whenever this person needs a dressing, you can't see these people. Is the dressing should be real simple that even a uneducated caretaker should be able to learn how to do it, because they need dressings very frequently, maybe 3 or 4 times a day. When you are changing the pamper, you need dressing. When the person has passed feces, you need a dressing. So basically, a little bit of Metrogel and clean gauze will do the trick. And whenever she passes feces, they can just clean it up and put say maybe a little bit of betadine mopping, and then put the Metrogel and close it. And these are proximal wounds, and they will heal very very quickly. And if they are slough, overt slough, and it's not coming out with the dressing and all that, you have to see. So that you can do with a photograph. When to get to you, that you should give these cutoff points. So basically, that's what I wanted to tell you all in this. These you have to analyze the whole situation and see what are the problems, and you have to have all those solutions at hand. So just wanted to show you all how to think. So maybe the answers that I gave were not the ideal. The ideal answer to a particular wound is at that moment. It depends, depending on the history, depending on the patient's condition, and depending on how much help the patient has, how much mobility, what he's doing. So it differs with the dressing selection, differs with each patient and each wound. There's no universal guideline. There can be guidelines where there's no universal rule on this. If this is this kind of wound, this dressing, it doesn't work like that. So just that's what I wanted to tell you all. So thank you very much.